Ghost stories fascinate many of us. All across the world are rumours of strange hauntings and unexplainable phenomena that have occurred in and around train stations. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 allegedly haunted trains and train stations. Ghosts of Waterfront Station. Waterfront Station is considered one of the most haunted buildings in downtown Vancouver. It was originally built in 1915 by the Canadian Pacific Railway as the final stop for their transcontinental trains that came from Toronto and Montreal. It is a grandiose terminal that was built to depict train travel during that era, romantic and glamorous with a certain level of sophistication associated with it. It is currently still used as a transportation hub where passengers can connect to multiple transport systems such as the SkyTrain, West Coast Express Train, Seabus, city buses, and the Helijet helicopter services. There used to be full-time residences and housing for travellers located in the East Wing, but that now has transformed into a restaurant. Upper floors have been turned into business offices, although some remain empty and are just used for storage. Ghosts and poltergeists have been seen many times by the security guards who patrol at night. One guard claims he saw the ghost of a 1920s flapper girl wearing a red dress who was dancing to jazz music alone in the corridor of the west end of the building. As he approached her, the music suddenly stopped and she disappeared. Another guard was walking through the rooms in the upper floor of the East Wing when he experienced a poltergeist. He was in a room that was used as storage for desks. As he walked through, the desks silently moved behind him and blocked the door. When he turned around and saw the desks, he jumped over them and ran from the room frightened. In the northwest corner of the station, a security guard wandered through a dark and empty room with his flashlight when all of a sudden, he came face to face with the ghost of an old woman. Glowing white, the miserable-looking woman reached her hand out to the guard. There have even been incidents of hauntings. One guard was in the kitchen when he was abruptly met by a different old woman. She tried to aggressively come towards him, but he fled. He later started to dream of her every night and would see her everywhere in windows and mirrors. He was suddenly overcome with the urge to paint her despite not being an artist. He left the painting in the kitchen and was never bothered by her again. Later on, management tried to move the painting, but then the mover began having dreams of her as well until management agreed to return the picture. Within the building, the night guards often hear the sound of footsteps walking through the station, despite there being no one there. Outside of the station on the tracks on the north end, they have also seen the ghost of a rail worker during rainy nights. They believe it is the spirit of Hub Clark, a brakeman who slipped on wet tracks in 1928 as he was repairing the rails and was subsequently knocked unconscious. A passenger train came along and he passed away due to horrific injuries. People claim to see Clark still wandering through the tracks, headless with a lantern in his hand while he searches for his head. London's Haunted Underground. London is an incredibly old city with a rich history and countless numbers of ghost sightings. The Underground especially is a frequent hotspot for the paranormal, so much so that they even made haunted tube maps of all the spooky sightings. Covent Garden Station has been haunted for over a century. Since it first opened, people have been seeing a tall figure wearing a top hat, gloves, and a cloak or coat. It is believed to be the deceased William Terrace, an actor who was attacked and lost his life in 1897 relatively nearby the station. This ghost-like figure is apparently so unnerving that multiple staff of the London Underground have requested transfers to avoid him. Bethnal Green Station was used as a shelter during the World War II air raids. In 1943, there was an alarm test drill which many thought was a real attack. They swarmed the station and 173 people ended up passing away from the stampede. Most of the deceased were women and children. It is said that screams can be heard at the station despite there being no one around. Supernatural occurrences have been seen near the ground of Elephant and Castle Station. While waiting on empty platforms, commuters have heard running footsteps and odd tapping sounds, as well as seeing doors flung open and slammed shut. There have been many reports of a young girl boarding the Bakerloo line but never seen exiting. The drivers at this station have even claimed to see the girl board their train themselves, further adding to the myth of this mystery ghost. Aldgate Station sits on top of what used to be a burial pit for those who passed away of the plague. This burial site is the cause of many ghost sightings within the station. It even has its own ghost logbook to keep track of them all. The most well-known ghost sighting is that of an elderly woman seen helping an injured man. A worker apparently fell onto the live electrical rail from a considerable height and was injured. Thankfully, he survived, but witnesses claimed that they saw a ghost-like figure stroking him while he laid there. She was quickly dubbed as the Elderly Angel of Aldgate, and is quite a famous phenomenon. There have even been sightings of ghost trains on the London Underground. In 1928, in the South Kensington Underground station, a commuter was waiting alone on the platform for the last train to pull in. A certain train pulled in with a whistle and passed through the tunnels. Clinging to the side of the train was a ghost-like figure clad in a coat and peaked hat. Apparently, the witness's description of it matched none of the existing and operating trains. There have been multiple sightings of this ghost train over the years, with the most recent one being in 2013. The London Underground has been serving the city for more than 150 years. It has been built on graves, suffered through wars, and has had many accidents occur upon its grounds. It's no wonder there are hundreds of ghost stories and sightings. Abraham Lincoln's funeral train. Every spring there are reports from 7 US states of a ghost train passing through certain cities. People claim that it is Abraham Lincoln's funeral train traveling on its designated route from Washington, D.C. to his final resting place in Springfield, Illinois. The life of the 16th President of the United States was taken shortly after the defeat of the Confederate Army during the Civil War. On the evening of April 14, 1865, he was attacked at point-blank range while attending a show at Ford's Theatre. He passed away a few hours later in the early morning of April 15th. It is interesting to note that he was surrounded by the supernatural throughout his life. His wife, Mary Todd, believed in omens and seances, especially after their 11-year-old son, Willie, passed away. 2 weeks prior to his attack, Lincoln had a premonition of his attack in a dream. He had dreamt of soldiers sobbing around a body, and when he asked them who passed away, they said, "The President." After he lost his life, a funeral train was organized to send both him and his son Willie to return back home to Illinois. The train was set to embark along the same route he took during the end of his campaign trail in 1861 as president-elect. It did not stop in Pittsburgh or Cincinnati, though. The train was dubbed the Lincoln Special and the engine Nashville. It was a 9-car train with Lincoln's coffin in the 8th. He was also accompanied by a guard of honor. On April 21, 1865, the funeral train left Washington, D.C. and traveled through 7 states and 180 cities until it arrived in Springfield on May 3rd. Thousands of people lined up alongside the railroads, regardless of time and weather, to pay their respects and bid Lincoln farewell. Every year during the last 2 weeks of April, it is reported that the train can still be seen running its exact route through the countryside with the president on board. As it passes by, clocks stop running, the air becomes cool, clouds cover the moon, and the train passes by silently with its ghostly headlight lighting its path. There have even been reports of seeing skeletons wearing blue uniforms standing around the casket on guard. Many of the communities along the procession route hold watches during the spring for a glimpse of the phantom train. The most well-known sightings have been in Albany, New York on April 26th and 27th, and in Urbana, Ohio on April 29th. All sightings have always been during the night. The train has been spotted numerous times over the past 100 years, despite no longer existing. In March 1911, it was unfortunately destroyed during a fire in Minneapolis, Minnesota. yet the phantom train still travels. But what do you make of these haunted trains and train stations? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.